Hello to myself. Right now we're gonna do. I got up. I was doing all that Blackpink stuff. Not Blackpink twice. So I was like, got up early. Not got up early, but I made sure I had my. Because I worked out legs yesterday. Made sure I had adequate rest. Like get my sleep in as much as possible, like 9 hours. Try to get 9 hours of sleep. Just rest, get some rest. And I'm having a shake right now. Yeah. So um. There's just some things that I was just trying to buy the Twice tickets this morning and I was like freaking out because I had like 2 browsers open, and just none of them were just loading in. Like I was still waiting in the queue until this something got it. But that's fine. Mm, Today will be a longer session. I think I'll keep a string long. Like, sounds like I'll probably be watching Mandalorian. Um, that's part of everything. But let's see. Yeah, the reason I'm trying to go to Twice in Blackpink because their contracts are ending soon, so who knows what will happen. Um, Once their contract ends, because once they're like in the 28s, mid 20s, mid late 20s to like late 30s, they're like, having a partner, starting a family, so it's pretty hard for them all doing their own shit. So it's gonna be pretty hard that later down the road to just go on a world tour, right? So that's why I spent a bit of money. I just spent a minimum. I got the cheapest tickets I could get, and when I was trying to get the Twice tickets, yeah, I was just like, why is this shit not loading? Like, I was just frantically pressing any thing, and we got like the worst one, I reckon, like at the back of the section, um, like on the side. But hey, doesn't matter. At least we got to see. That's my view. Um, okay, I think we're just gonna try and finish off. Redo the drill DAX. I feel like DAX in the Power BI. So DAX for me just seems like it's just coding. Like you're learning to do sum, you're doing like count, you're doing distinct and all that stuff on the columns, and you create these columns in the whatever, right? So I feel like I'm just gonna watch it with most of them and just try and get through all the Power BI stuff, and then we'll do the assignment, and then mana roaring will come up. You'll watch that. Do after I finish the assignment. Yeah, so that's the plan. Get everything set up. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, no. Yeah. I'm just, yeah, I think I'll also go for a run later in the afternoon. I played basketball yesterday, and yeah, playing basketball. It's a hot minute. Like all the guys, I was like the only tall guy, and our team's just full of short dudes, short things. And the other dude was just all 180 plus. So it was just me rebounding against every bloody person. So it was pretty tired, and I did legs in the morning. So I think I'll probably do that today. Rock the shit out. But yeah, today I think what's gonna happen is that here's the Power BI project, so I know what's happening. Write some stuff for Aaron Paul company. Just preparing for that interview. Yeah, I got a call yesterday about interview data analyst role at my like one of the unis at one of the unis in Sydney. There are four people. They have an analyst, a senior analyst, and a senior manager interviewing me. I'm like, bro, like it doesn't. I'm like, it doesn't need to be that deep. Like, um, so yeah, planning process statistician. Yeah, I probably won't be able to pass that because I have zero experience in that role. So uh, I'm still haven't received the contract yet, so that's good. But but I'll definitely call her now. So I'm gonna put myself on mute. Just give me a second. Uh, yeah. I'm probably gonna mute myself real quick. Yeah, I'm gonna try just get ChatGPT to write up a text message script for. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna write a couple text messages to each other. remember like when pandas like yeah, so like when pandas were like what were they like $300 in the resale market. Now they're like $200, which is more reasonable. Jeez, for what? Statics. I really do like the statics. But you know, I'll probably just keep it. I just have a pair of statics at home, which I bought for over. I mean, Australia was selling it retail, which was 580, which is insane. Insane. It's like resale price, but we'll just keep it. Alright, it's time to do this. I'm gonna watch this drill down.
To the Power BI tutorial series. Today we're going to be looking at how to drill down.
Maybe we should watch
What's going on, everybody?
I'm kind of confused. DAX is, and then
Welcome back to the Power BI tutorial series. Today we're going to be taking a look at DAX. Now, DAX stands for Data Analysis Expressions, and it's basically a library of functions and operators that help you build formulas. You can use DAX to create measures and calculated columns within Power BI, which can really give you a lot of insight into your data. Honestly, it is not super complicated, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a lot more confidence actually using DAX in Power BI. So without further ado, let's jump onto my screen and get started with the tutorial. All right, so let's take a look at our tables and data before we get started. So we have two tables, the Apocalypse Sales, the Apocalypse Store. For this Apocalypse Sales table, we have the customer, product ID, order ID, units sold, and the date it was purchased. And then for the Apocalypse Store, we have product ID, product name, price, and production cost. Now these are joined together, or they do have a relationship together via the product ID. So what we're going to be using are these new measures and new columns to create our DAX functions. So really quickly, let's go over to this report tab and let's drop down our fields over here so we can see everything. And so to get us started, we're going to go right up here to Apocalypse Sales. We're going to right click and click New Measure. And it's going to open up this right here, which is basically our bar where we can create our functions. And so right here, it's automatically giving us the name measure, but we can change that and we're going to say count of sales. So now we can start writing our DAX function. That's just going to be the name of it and what's going to show up right over here once we click enter. So let's go over here and we're going to say count. And as we're typing, it's automatically giving us options. It has something called IntelliSense. If you've ever used other Microsoft products, IntelliSense is their kind of auto completion that helps you look at other options very quickly. And so we're just going to click on this count and it's prompting us to put in a column name. And so we can come down here and we can select one, or we can type it out and it'll try to predict and help us choose which column to select. So for us, we're going to use this order ID, but let's just start typing it out. We'll say order ID, and then we can click on it. And we're going to close this parentheses and click enter, or you can go over here and click this check mark, but we're just going to click enter. And so over on this right side, it finalized that and saved that. And we can actually look at that by clicking on this box next to it. And we want to look at this in a table. So now we can see that there are 74 sales. Now, for this, we want to see who's buying our products. We want to see what our client name is. So we're going to go over here and we're going to choose customer. And we're going to put customer on top of sales. And we're just going to take a look at it like this. So now we can see that our number one customer is Uncle Joe's Prep Shop. He has 22 orders. Now they have the most orders with us, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're spending the most money with us, but we can take a look. So we're going to go over here and we're going to choose customer, and we're going to put customer on top of sales. And we're just going to take a look at it like this. So now we can see that our number one customer is Uncle Joe's Prep Shop. He has 22 orders. Now they have the most orders with us, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're spending the most money with us, but we can take a look at that later. The next thing that I want to take a look at is how many products we're actually selling. What are our big products that we're selling? We have 10 different items, but I don't know exactly which one is selling the best, if one is doing really poorly and getting no orders. This is something that I want to look into. So all we're going to do is go right back up here to Apocalypse Sales again, right click and select new measure. And for this one, we're going to call it the sum of products sold. And all we're going to start out with is by doing sum. And if this seems familiar to something like Excel, you're 100% correct. It is very similar. And remember, these are both Microsoft products, so there's going to be similar functionality in both of them. And so this DAX is going to have a lot of similarities to exactly how it has it in Excel. So we're going to do an open bracket. And now what we're going to choose is this units sold. We want to sum up all of these units sold and see how many we're actually selling. So we're going to say units sold. I'm going to hit tab. It's going to auto complete that. I'm going to close my parentheses and I'm going to come over here and click this checkbox. So now it's created that measure and we're already selected in this table. So all we have to do is click the check mark and it's going to show us that we have 3,000 total products sold. And we can go through here and see what the big sellers are. And probably the biggest one that I see right off the bat is this multi-tool survival knife. So these DAX functions that you can write can be very simple and lead to really good insights that you can use for the visualizations later on. Now I want to take a look at the difference between something like sum, which is an aggregator function, and something like sumx, which is an iterator function. Because if you add x to some of these aggregator functions, you can create them or make them into an iterator function. So you can have sum and sumx, or average and averagex. Adding x onto the end of them can make them into an iterator function. So let's take a look and see how that actually works. I'm going to show you the difference, and then I'm going to talk through the difference at the end. So really quickly, let's go back to our data. And let's go to the Apocalypse store. Now, what we have right here is we have the price and we have the production cost. And we want to see how much profit we're getting from each of these, as well as we can take a look at the units sold and see how much money we are actually making. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back over here. We're going to go to Apocalypse store. We're going to right click and create a measure. And in just a little bit, we're going to be creating a new column, and that'll kind of show the difference really well. So we're going to create this new measure and we're going to name it profit. And we're going to come over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the sum. We're going to start with our sums. We're going to take the sum of the price, and then we're going to close that parentheses, and we're going to subtract the sum of the production cost. So all that does is it says if something costs $20, if we sold it for $20 and it only costs us $10, that's $10 in profit for that item. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to actually want to encapsulate that really quickly because we're about to use multiply. And then we're going to sum, and now we're going to take the units sold. So how many units were actually sold at that profit that we just made. So let's see if that works, and let's click the check right here. And so we have the profit. So let's click on the profit. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's use a new one. Let's create a new table. We're going to click profit, and let's make it a table. And I'm going to pull this right over here. Now we have our profit, but what I really want to know is which customer is spending the most money at my store. So we're going to come right over here. We're going to click on customer, and I'm going to put customer at the top. And just at a glance, we can see that Uncle Joe's Prep Shop is spending the most money at the store. Now, what I want to show you is the difference between sum and sum X. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this profit and going to copy this entire thing. And we're going to go back here to this table. Now we just created a measure and we were able to break it down by each customer. So let's go back over here. Now let's go up here to home and we're going to create a new column and we're going to call this profit underscore column. And we're going to literally paste the exact same thing into here. And we're going to hit enter. And each row is the exact same thing. So what it's doing is it is going through the price, and it's adding all of it up and calculating it at the bottom. It's adding the production cost. It's going all the way down and calculating it at the bottom. And then it's going over and looking at how many units it sold. And then it's performing this calculation up here. And then it gives us the total, and it's doing it for every single row. But that's not really what we want it to show. What we want it to show is the profit for each row. What we want it to say is here's the price for the rope, the production cost for the rope, and then how many units we actually sold. And then it'll calculate that and give us the actual profit for just that row. But we cannot do it by just using this sum. What we need to do is use something called sum X. So let's add another column. Let's go back to home. I'm going to say new column. And now we're going to say profit underscore column underscore sum X. And now we're going to use sum X and hit tab. And we need to choose the table that we want to put this in. So we're going to say apocalypse sales, because that's the table that we're looking at right here. We're going to say comma. And now we need to input an expression, which it says it returns the sum of an expression evaluated for each row in a table. Before, when you're just using sum, it's looking at all of these combined. Now it's taking it row by row. So what we're going to do is basically input the same thing as we did before. I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste that. It's not going to be correct. I need to get rid of these sums. But it's basically the exact same equation. Give me just a second. And let's get rid of this sum. And let's see if this works. So let's click the check button. And now this looks a lot better. So what this is now showing us is at a row level, this nylon rope made us $51,000, almost $52,000. The waterproof matches made us $15,000. And we can go down and look at each item and see how much that actually made us versus this profit column. And so that is the biggest difference between sum and sum X. Hopefully that made sense. I know that sum and sum X and the difference between an aggregator function and an iterator function can be a little bit confusing, especially if you've never done it before. But hopefully,
So X, just like when you have each line item, it'll just break it down. Okay.
hopefully that was a good example for you to understand that concept. Now let's go back over here to Apocalypse Sales. Right here we have a date purchase. Now in the DAX function, we have some ways that we can interact with dates. And so I want to take a look at those really quickly. So we're going to go right up here and click on new column. And we're just going to leave that as column. But what we're going to say is day. So there's a few different ones. We have day, date, YTD, next day, previous day, and weekday. And they all are pretty self-explanatory. If you click on it, let's click on weekday. It says it's going to return a number from 1 to 7, identifying the day of the week of a date. So let's use this really quickly. And so we're going to say date purchased and click tab, hit comma. And it's going to give us 3 different options, basically. It's a 1, a 2, and a 3. Right here, if you hit this button, read more, you can read more on it. This is going to say Sundays equal to 1, Saturdays equal to 7. I like this one personally, which is Monday equals 1. In my brain, it just makes more sense. So I'm going to click on 2. I'm going to close that parentheses. And we're going to, I guess I'll say, let's say day of week for the column. Let's click that checkbox. And now Saturdays are equal to 6s, Mondays are equal to 1. This allows us to see which day of the week people are buying the most products on, or which day of the week is somebody submitting their orders on. And so let's go over to our report. Let's get rid of this. We're just going to move this. Oh, geez, I hate moving stuff sometimes. All right, really quickly, I want to show you the difference between what we just did and what we already have. So we have this date purchased, and let's make that into a bar graph. And what we're going to be taking a look at is actually the units sold. So right here, we have this, and obviously we don't want 2022, we're going to get rid of the year. We only have 1 quarter. Right here, we can see January, February, March, so we can tell that January has the most sales or the most units sold in that month. If we get rid of that, we go down to day, we do have some information, but we don't know what day of the week it is. It could change from month to month. And it's really hard to tell exactly if there's any pattern there at all. That's where what we just created comes in handy. So let's recreate this exact same thing, but instead we're going to use day of week. So we're going to select day of week in units sold. Let's drag that down and move this over right here. And this day of the week should be on the x-axis. And it's really easy now to see if there's a pattern here. There's really not, at least not for this fake data that we have. But I want these data labels on really quickly. It's not easy to see if there's any pattern. Again, Monday has the most. So maybe it goes down a little bit and then it picks back up. So maybe middle of the week is our least sales day. Our Wednesdays and Thursdays are a little bit lower than the rest, and the beginning and the end of the week tend to be the highest. Again, not a huge pattern, but it's much easier to see if there is a pattern from week to week or what day of the week now that we use this weekday function. And so this can be really, really useful. Let's go back here to our data. And now we're going to look at our last DAX function for this video. Let's go up here and create a new column. And we're going to be looking at something called the if statement. Now, if you've ever used Excel, I'm sure you have heard of this, and you can do the exact same thing here in Power BI. And so we're going to name this one order size, order underscore size. And so all we're going to say is if. We're going to click on this one right here. We need to perform our logical test. And then we want to say if it's true, what's our value? And if it's false, what is our value? So what we're going to be looking at is units sold. So we're looking at order size. So we're going to say if units sold is greater than 25, what's going to happen? If it is true, if the order is larger than 25, we want to say it's a big order. And if it's not, we want to say it's a small order. Super simple. We'll close out parentheses. We'll click OK. And now really quickly, we're able to see if this is a big order or a small order. And so that is all I have for you today. There are a lot of other DAX functions, but the ones that we looked at today are ones that are very common, ones that you'll see the most. And there can be a lot of really What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Power BI tutorial series. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Power BI tutorial series. Today, we're going to be looking at how to drill down in visualizations. So when I say drill down, I mean you're basically adding another layer beneath the top layer of the visualization. And when somebody clicks or drills down into that data, they can see more insights and more information on the top level of data. When you drill down, you can also drill up, and I will show you how to do that in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's jump on my screen and get started with the tutorial. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to remind you that you can find the data that we're going to be working with in this tutorial in the description. You can go and download it from my GitHub. Now, the two tables that we're going to be looking at are Apocalypse Sales and Purchase Tracker. And if you've ever created any visualizations, you've probably seen something like this where you'll have the store and the price, and this is the things that we actually bought. So this is the total amount of Apocalypse prepping equipment that we bought. And we'll put the store in this legend right here. And you've probably seen something like this. And if you're anything like me, you're going to be in a meeting and you're going to be presenting this, and some higher up is going to be like, hey, Alex, that looks great, but I want to, see what things we actually bought in Target and how much this cost. Can you create a visualization for that? And you're going to be like, well, I could, or I could use drill down. And so you could have done this in the first place, which you should have. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the product right here, and these are going to be the actual things, and we're going to put it right under store. Now you can't see these things, right? But there is a hierarchy here. So once we added this, these options became available. Let's take it out, and all those just disappeared. And then if we add it back right here, they came back. And so you can do right here, which is click to turn on drill down. You can go to the next level in the hierarchy, or you can even expand all down one level in the hierarchy. So let's look at each of those really quickly. So let's click on this one. It's just going to turn on drill down mode. So now if I go and I click on target, it's going to drill down into these. And if we want to, I can then put product under this legend. And we can see all of those things. But of course, if we go back up, it's going to be all broken up into this clustered column chart, which is more like this, which isn't exactly what we were going for, but it works. Now, let me get rid of this. I actually want store in the legend. Now, if we turn that off and we click, it doesn't do that anymore. So what it does now is it just highlights Walmart, it highlights Costco, it highlights Target. So we're going to keep that on, but we can also do something called going down the next level of hierarchy. So let's click on that. And so now this is going to go down to the next level, down to this product level, because that is the next level. And now it's going to show us each of those things, but it's going to have it broken out by the store. And so it's a completely different visualization, but all within the same realm of the data that we're looking at and what we actually care about. So let's go back up in the hierarchy, and then let's use this one right here, which is expand all down one level in the hierarchy. And so this one is, again, extremely similar, except it just visualizes it differently. And now what it's doing is Walmart rice, Target dried beans, Costco rice. So instead of having it all like this one, where it's stacked on top of each other, it's breaking it down individually. So this one column would become 3 separate columns. Now I'm going to minimize this right here. I'm actually going to go back up in the hierarchy, just for visual purposes. Now I'm going to show you one more example. I'm going to use this Apocalypse Sales up here. And this is one that I actually use all the time. So the one you've seen, you'll get stuff like that, especially if you're working with like sales and stuff. But I work in operations, right? So I have a lot of order IDs, product IDs, stuff like that. Now this one genuinely I use quite often. I'll have a customer. Let's make it, we'll just go like this. We have a customer and we have units sold. And let's use, genuinely I use quite often. I'll have a customer. Let's make it, we'll just go like this. We have a customer and we have units sold. And let's use the customer as the legend. So let's make this one quite a bit larger. And have units sold. And let's use this. These work in operations, right? So I have a lot of order IDs, product IDs. You'll get stuff like that, especially if you're working with like sales and stuff. But I work in operations, right? So I have a lot of order IDs, product IDs, stuff like that. Now this one genuinely I use quite often. I'll have a customer. Let's make it, we'll just go like this. We have a customer and we have units sold. And let's use the customer as the legend. So let's make this one quite a bit larger. And I'll have something like this and they'll say, okay, well, we want to see the order IDs that go with it because we want to know what orders are actually happening for each of these people. Obviously, I'm not using this exact data, but very, very, very similar. And all you have to do is take these order IDs and slide it right under here under customer. And this visualization right here is something I've done 1,000 times because what happens is some stakeholder in our company is saying, hey, Alex, we want this and we want to drill down on this IP address. We want to drill down on this certain database. We want to drill down on something and we want to see the order IDs within them. So then all you do is you turn on drill mode or drill down mode, you'll click on it and you can see every single order ID that's in there. And then they can go and look those up in their system and resolve them or whatever they're trying to do with it. And it helps a ton. And it's very, very useful. This one is extremely applicable. And that's really all drill down is. Again, you have these different hierarchies as well. But for different things, it's not as useful, as you can see. We also have this hierarchy, which again is not as useful. So it just depends on the data that you're using and how you want to use this drill down effect. But I promise you that drill down is used all the time, especially when you're. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Power BI tutorial series. Today, we're going to be taking a look at conditional formatting.
I reckon my approach is going to be like, just watch the video and, because I've already done the other two. So I'm just revisiting to what I know. And then watch this and I'll try to figure out conditional formatting by myself, the way he does it.
This, and then we'll go back to it in the Excel series. And it's very similar how you use it in Excel versus how you use it in Power. Look at conditional formatting. Now, conditional formatting may sound familiar because we looked at it in the Excel series, and it's very similar how you use it in Excel versus how you use it in Power BI. Conditional formatting allows you to take a table or a matrix within Power BI and use those cells to color code them and create gradients and different visualizations within the actual table or matrix. I'm excited to start this one, so let's jump over my screen and get started with the tutorial. All right, so before we get started, if you want to use the data that we're using in this video, you can find it in the description on my GitHub. Now, conditional formatting is super simple, and you've most likely used it in Excel before, but you can also use it in Power BI, and let me show you how to do that. So the first thing we're going to do is come over to our Apocalypse store, and we're going to pull up our product name as well as the price. And what a matrix within Power BI. Now, conditional formatting may sound familiar because we looked at it in the Excel series, and it's very similar how you use it in Excel versus how you use it in Power BI. Conditional formatting allows you to take a table or a matrix within Power BI and use those cells to color code them and create gradients and different visualizations within the actual table or matrix. I'm excited to start this one, so let's jump over my screen and get started with the tutorial. All right, so before we get started, if you want to use the data that we're using in this video, you can find it in the description on my GitHub. Now, conditional formatting is super simple, and you've most likely used it in Excel before, but you can also use it in Power BI, and let me show you how to do that. So the first thing we're going to do is come over to our Apocalypse store, and we're going to pull up our product name as well as the price. And what we can do is come over here, and we're going to go to price, and it has to be under the columns, so you can't come over here and do this. We're going to come right over here to price, and we're going to right click, and let's go to conditional formatting, and we have background color, font color, icons, and web URL. Let's take a look at background color first. This is most likely the one that we'll look at the most. So we're going to get this pop-up, and I'm going to slide this over. Now, there's a lot of different things we can customize in here, and the first thing I want to take a look at is format style. We have the gradient, and what it's going to say is the lowest value will be this color. This is most likely the one that we'll look at. So the first thing we're going to do is come over to our Apocalypse store, and we're going to pull up our product name as well as the price. And what we can do is come over here, and we're going to go to price, and it has to be under the columns, so you can't come over here and do this. We're going to come right over here to price, and we're going to right click, and let's go to conditional formatting, and we have background color, font color, icons, and web URL. Let's take a look at background color first. This is most likely the one that we'll look at the most. So we're going to get this pop up, and I'm going to slide this over. Now, there's a lot of different things we can customize in here, and the first thing I want to take a look at is format style. We have the gradient, and what it's going to say is the lowest value will be this color, highest value will be this color. It'll give us this gradient color scale. And so we'll use that in just a little bit, but we can also create rules, kind of like an if statement. And if it is between this range and this range, we'll give it a color. And if it's between a different range and a different range, we'll give it a different color. So we'll also try that one. And then we have this field value. And this one is one that honestly, I don't use that much. I've used it maybe once. And what you can do is select a
Okay, woo! Let's go!
Text field like customer, and you can do some summarizations on the first and last, and that is it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at gradient specifically for not the customer, but we're going to go back to the Apocalypse store and we're going to do it on the price. Now, what I'm going to do is keep it as the count because this is what the default is, and we're going to go back and fix it later. But what we want our lowest value to be is this bright green, showing that it's a cheap product, it's easy to purchase. The high value ones are going to be just the shade of red, more expensive. And we'll do it on the count. Now remember, the count is on each of these, and we're not doing a count of how many are sold, we're doing a count of each product. So it's just one per row. So it all should be the same color. Let's take a look. So it is all the same color. But what we really want to show is the actual price, not just the count of the price. So let's go back to conditional formatting. We're going to click the background color again. And this time we're going to change the summarization. Now, you can do sum, you can do average, minimum, maximum. It really doesn't matter for this example. The number is the same regardless of really which one we choose. So we can just choose the minimum. And it's going to choose the minimum of each row, which is the price. So we're just going to select minimum for this example. We'll select OK, and it should correct it accordingly, which means the bright green is the lowest, and it goes all the way up to the highest, which is the red. Now let's go over here to Apocalypse sales. We'll add in the units sold, and let's move that out a little bit. And I'm doing that on purpose because we're about to look at something within the conditional formatting. So let's go to units sold, and we'll look at the conditional formatting for this one. Now, if you noticed, we now have a new one on here called data bars. Now we're able to see data bars on units sold and not price because units sold is something like a sum, an average, something that's aggregated. But let's take a look at data bars because I want to show you how to use this, and then we'll go back to the background color. So for data bars, we are going to taking a look at the lowest to the highest value. Again, we're going to go from bright green all the way to this exact red. It's going to be from left to right. And what it's going to show you is if it is a positive number, which all of these are, is going to be a green bar basically representing the number that you see in here along this line. So let's click OK. And we're going to be able to see the highest numbers. And let's scooch this over quite a bit so you can kind of get a better understanding. And we're going to do it from highest to lowest. So we sold the most multi-tool survival knives at 477. And so this entire bar, this row, is entirely filled up or almost all the way filled up. While as it gets lower and as we sell only 182 solar battery flashlights, the bar is going to represent that and show that. Now, I'm about to completely mess up this visualization on purpose because it's about to get very messy to show you that you can do a little bit too much. It is possible. What we're going to do is we're going to go right over here, different range. We can give it a different color. So say 500. Go to conditional format here, which basically says 0 to 33%. On product revenue is these data bars right here. I can now use those data bars. And so we're going to use those data bars, and we're going to say for the lowest value and the highest. And you can show the bar on shape. The end just having the numbers themselves makes it a little bit more easy to read.
Dude, like, you know, sometimes when you check out stuff, like the charts and stuff, that's data bars. Okay.
And understand. Now, again, you do a little bit too much. So the highest value, again, we're going to go from back to red, highest number. To completely mess up this highest numbers, and let's scooch this over quite a bit so you can kind of get a better understanding. And we're going to do it from highest to lowest. So number, not percent, how you've seen them, and the right here, and the top revenue, I go outperforming 95 math for work to have the helpful. Thank you guys. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Power BI tutorial series. Today, we're going to be taking a look at bins and lists. Now, bins and lists are really useful because they allow you to group things together to analyze and visualize them easier. So in this tutorial, I'll show you how to create your bins and lists, and then we'll create some visualizations to show you how it can be helpful. So without further ado, that I kind of missed, like professionals or one. And again, they can answer however they want. Go out and use it and make the best dashboard that you can mess with it and break it or anything means. But you want to make it look a little nicer rather than just the typical white. Let's jump on my screen and get started with the tutorial. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to let you know you can go and download the data that we're going to be using in this tutorial. In the description below is on my GitHub. So we are going to be looking at bins and lists today. And for this, we're going to be going over here to this Apocalypse sales. And let's open up our data right over here. And we want to look at Apocalypse sales. Really quickly, I feel like more people would know what a bin is, so we'll kind of start with a list, just go a little bit backwards than we normally would. I'm going to use this customer, or we're going to use this customer column right here for a list really quickly. And you can do that in two ways. You can come up here and you can right click on the customer and go to new group, or you can come over here under this the field section on the far right and go to customer, right click and click new group. So let's click on that now. And right now is only, let's click on that now. And right now is only giving us the list type. It's not giving us bins because bins have to be numeric. So we really can't do that at the moment. So we're going to call this just customer groups, or we'll actually call it list just so it's easier to recognize when we create it. And so all we're going to do is we're going to basically group these, but it's going to be called a list. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select, and we're going to select, and we're going to say group, and click on this group button. And then it creates this Alex the Analyst Apocalypse preppers and this prep for anything prepping store. So that it kind of named it for us. But if we double click on it, then we can rename this and we can call this the best prepping stores. And then we have these last two, and we can click on one and then click Control and click on the other one so we get both of them. And then we can click Group, and we can call this, and we'll double click and we'll call this the worst prepping stores. And then that's it. And that's all we have to do. And then we can click Group, and we can call this, and we'll double click and we'll call this, and then we can click and then it creates this Alex the Analyst Apocalypse preppers and this prep for, or we're going to use this customer column right here. For this, we're going to be going over here to this Apocalypse sales. And let's open up our data right over here. And we want to look at Apocalypse sales. Really quickly, I feel like more people would know what a bin is, so we'll kind of start with a list, just go a little bit backwards than we normally would. I'm going to use this customer, or we're going to use this customer column right here for a list really quickly. And you can do that in two ways. You can come up here and you can right click on the customer and go to new group, or you can come over here under this the field section on the far right and go to customer, right click and click new group. So let's click on that now. And right now is only giving us the list type. It's not giving us bins because bins have to be numeric. So we really can't do that at the moment. So we're going to call this just customer groups, or we'll actually call it list just so it's easier to recognize when we create it. And so all we're going to do is we're going to basically group these, but it's going to be called a list. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select, and we're going to select, and we're going to say group and click on this group button. And then it creates this Alex the Analyst Apocalypse preppers and this prep for anything prepping store. So that it kind of named it for us. But if we double click on it, then we can rename this and we can call this the best prepping stores. And then we have these last two, and we can click on one and then click Control and click on the other one so we get both of them. And then we can click Group, and we can call this, and we'll double click and we'll call this the worst prepping stores. And then that's it. And that's all we have to do. And what we're then going to do, and if you want to undo this and you want to switch it up and do whatever, you can click on group sales. And you can do that in two ways. You can come up here and you can right click on the customer and go to new group, recognize stores. Basically, you could even create a calculated column, do it on this customer, create an if statement. We're not going to do that. We're going to click OK. And here is the column that it created. And it basically tells us what list we put it in. If it's Uncle Joe's Prep Shop, that's in the worst prepping stores list. And if it's the Alex the Analyst Apocalypse Preppers, that is in the best prepping stores. So it's kind of like an if statement. You could even create a calculated column, do it on this customer, create an if statement. This is just a lot. It's the first customer. Auto go to than doing that, but it basically would do the exact same thing. Now you can use lists as well on things like numeric. And then we will go back here, this range and this other range, it's the latest orders. Again, and we'll go to new group and it's gonna auto go to bin because typically that's what you'll use, but you can do list as well. And let's say, we want to call these like, we'll group these and call these the first, we'll call this the first customers or the first orders because we're looking at order IDs. Look at the first orders. And then we will go back here. We're going on the left side. We're going to click. Oops. We're going to go back to the top. We're going to hit shift, group all of these, and we'll say the latest orders. And you absolutely can do this. Again, this is kind of like an if statement, right? So you're saying if it falls between this range and this range, then it's called the first orders. And if it's between this range and this other range, it's the latest orders. Again, it's just a much simpler version of an if statement. And so you don't have to write it all out. You can just have this user interface kind of do it for you. And it's really, really useful. So now let's talk about bins, and by far the easiest way to demonstrate this, and I'll show you one other way, but by far the easiest way to show this is by
What's going on, everybody?
age.
Welcome back.
And so for absolutely no reason whatsoever, these customer IDs who are right here in this customer information, they decided to give us some of their buyer information who are actually buying their products on their website or in their store. They just decided to give it to us, as well as some simple demographic information.
When was the
I don't know why. But what we're going to use bins for is grouping these age brackets. So, you might be interested in say, well, I want to know if my core population who are buying my products are within a certain range. And you don't want to look at every single age because then it just, on your visualizations, it's not going to look right. You want to kind of group them and make it easier to visualize. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through here and we're going to basically go by tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and see what age bracket these people fall in. So we're going to go to age, we're going to right click, and we're going to say, basically go by tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and see what age bracket these people fall in. So we're going to go to age, we're going to right click and we're going to say new group, and we're going to go to bin, and we'll leave it as the default age bins. Visualizations, it's not going to look right. You want to kind of group them and make it easier to visualize. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through here and we're going to basically go by
Vision
tens.
nerds, it's
So
going to be
10,
50-50
20,
forever.
30, 40, 50, 60,
Patting each other on the
and
back,
see what
slapping
age
their ass,
bracket
saying,
these
"Good
people
game
fall
out
in."
there,
So we're going to go to age, we're
They
going to
are
right click,
taking their victory
and we're
lap,
gonna say
letting
new
us
group,
all. He's shown me his.
and we're going to go to bin, and we'll leave it as the
Like,
default
it's
age bins.
I mean, in
And
theory,
you can
like,
do
the
two
concept.
things. You can do the size of the bins, which splits it by this number right here, or you can go based on the number of bins. So if you only want to do 5 different bins, it'll calculate that for you, and it'll say, okay, if you only want 5 bins, you're going to have to do it at 12.2. If you want 10 bins, it could be 6.1. But it is completely up to you on how you want to do that. You can do the size, and we'll just say every 10, which is what we're going to do. Or you can go through, and then you can create and so forth. So when create a bin for this as well. So let's go to date purchase. Let's go to this, where you can go through this as well. So let's go to date purchased. Let's go to this group, all these It's a little bit easier to do through, and you can select it and you can say, okay, this group, all these dates, you can group those and say this is going to be January. And you can do that, and that's totally okay. But for this one, we're going to do bins. I think it's a little bit easier to do bins because what we can do is go right here and we can specify what we want: seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, or years. And so for the data that we have, it goes January, February, and March. And our visualizations, and we'll see how this would have kind of looked like. And we can see our distribution of months. We can just use this right here, and that will be our months column. So now let's go over to our visualizations, and we'll see how this looks really quickly. We're not going to look at all of them, but we will take a look at a few of them. So the first one that we can look at is age. So let's look at the buyer ID, and then we'll do age as well. And so let's spread this out, and we can see our distribution of our buyers. So it looks like we have very few who are in the 10 range, thank goodness. And we can even put the age right. Now we're drilling down into gold. And it looks like the best prepping store is actually performing much worse. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. What's going on, everybody? Never. That is what this legend is. Data that we're going to be using for these visualizations, ID purchased, and create that visualization. Very first, intuitively, in these videos, we have gone through and looked at some of these visual and so basically what, let's break it out: price, scatter plot, and for them, and they request straightforward. So display it just like this, and you it looks like, and it's super easy, and oftentimes actual job. And that's fine.
5-minute break. Take 5-minute break. Alright. See if Mandalorian's up. Up. Okay, 22, March 22. Let me check how to. I'm gonna start a new session and we'll be back.